the foundation of being good at what you do is like working really hard. Like that's like the foundation for, I think, for being successful. And then I also feel like relationships, like that hasn't changed. In 25 years, I worked just as hard at my relationships then as I do now. It's the same thing, not only with vendors and establishing relationships and doing a good job and being kind and being aware and mindful of what their needs, your client needs, and playing that really good middleman that makes sure that everyone's feeling good. And then also drawing the line when the clients may be overstepping, or drawing the line when the vendor's overstepping. Like you're the executive producer, you're at the top, you manage all the people, but ultimately you get called again because someone was like, wow, I really liked working with that team. That team was lovely. That team was kind.
This is the Wine and Dine Me podcast. Forget the etiquette. No rules, just real talk. Today's guest knows what it takes to build a respective creative business over time through patience, sacrifice, strong boundaries, and a willingness to keep doing the work long before anyone is paying attention. Alison Hotchkiss is the founder of Alison Events based in Sausalito, California. Over the past 24 years, she and her team have produced multi-day, multi-layered celebrations across 15 countries for clients ranging from household names to self-funded couples with very clear opinions. Alison is also a 3-time author, most recently of her book, Gorgeous Gatherings. Her career reflects what it means to build trust slowly, lead with honesty, protect your time, and stay committed to the work through every season of growth. Welcome, Alison. You've been doing this for almost 25 years.
Yeah.
And
I just turned 50.
That's crazy. You don't look 50. You look great.
Thank you.
I wonder if
Yeah,
I'm going to be.
what's crazy about it is that I was 25 when I started, because now I have stepkids that are like 30, and I'm like, how did I do this? Like, I can't envision running a company at 25 now.
Yeah,
You're so young.
I know. I started at 24 and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I also wanted
We
to have
just did it.
babies at 25. I
Right.
was like ready to start life. I think when you're an entrepreneur and an event planner, the two of those together, you're a little maybe more ambitious than most. I don't know.
I mean, I come from an entrepreneurial family, so I feel like I was raised around people that were making shit happen young, and so I think it was just in my bones, it's like gonna happen to me.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you starting at 25
Yeah.
years old. What what did the scene look like then and what barriers of entry were there?
I mean, obviously 25 years ago, it was very different. It wasn't like, it was a little Wild West. It wasn't like the level of phone book, but not far off, like finding vendors. There was the internet, but like Facebook was kind of barely happening. So for me, it was really like kind of who you knew and how to find out what you needed to know. So destination events, which is kind of the point of entry for me, or my goal was to be, in that space. It was rough, but it was fun, and I loved the challenge about it. Like, I remember one of my first weddings I did in Costa Rica was actually for a photographer, and like there was no rental company in Playa Grande, Costa Rica. There was no linen company. Like, we literally went to San Jose and had the linens made, and then we hired like the house cleaners to sew the napkins, and we had to rent benches from the rodeo, and like we spray painted the string lights pink to make it a warm glow. Now, granted, she was in the industry and she was super creative, and I ended up doing my first book with her there, Alison Gowdy, super creative. So it was definitely collaborative. It wasn't like I was doing this all on my own, but we kind of knew there was nothing. So it was
Yeah.
fun. But yeah, you had to kind of figure it out. I remember we had like a DJ booth made, and we wanted to put it in this like palapa. So we had all the groomsmen like build the palapa the day before. And then we were like, oh, we should put sand around it. So you're dancing in the sand. Like, you're really like building things from scratch.
Yeah.
And obviously like Central America is very different than like continental US. There were rentals in continental US, but we're talking like 10 chargers and a couple
Right.
Shivari chairs. You could get white or brown, maybe black. So I remember we were making covers for chairs because you only had 3 chairs to choose from. So if you wanted it to look elevated, you had to put a little cap on the top. So there was a lot more things that we were making, you know? It
Yeah.
was a very like do it yourself world.
Did
So
you ever, and obviously this is before production companies and you were having to figure it all out yourself. Did you do all of that in-house at ever a
yeah,
time? Yeah.
at 25, hell yeah. Like I did it from my little IKEA desk in my studio apartment. And then I would like go on the road and, I would be like, I'm a surfer, so I was surfing in Hawaii one time and, like, there was no cake makers in the area that we were in, and so I was out there, I was like, "Does anyone know a cake maker?" I mean, like, it would be things like that, or you would go to the rodeo and meet someone, they're like, "Yeah, I'm a caterer." I'm like, "You're a caterer? Like, what kind of food do you do?" So it was, it was kind of like all through connection, and I remember, like, if I was doing a wedding in the Caribbean, I couldn't go on Instagram and look at every vendor that you hired in the Caribbean. I had to like go on Facebook and be like, has anyone ever been to this island in the Caribbean? Like, okay, I got one lead here. And then I would like follow that lead to try and find somebody. Or I would live by like Condé Nast and all the magazines. I would get Travel and Leisure and I literally had like every single Travel and Leisure the first like 10 years of my career. And I'd rip out places that were interesting to me and have a whole binder still that I have like interesting places and like just there might be a drip of a resource in there that I could potentially use later on.
Yeah.
Same thing with Martha Stewart started a little bit before I started. I had every single Martha Stewart magazine. So if it came out and someone did a wedding in Mexico in a particular town 5 years later, I'd be like, oh, where was that
Right.
town? And I mean, it was just different. Our mood boards were like cut and paste. I like cut
Yeah.
it out of magazines and paste
Yeah.
them and showed up at the client meeting like, "Here's your inspiration
Yeah.
board."
Yeah. I
So
remember when I first started, we were doing that. Brides were mailing clippings in, and we'd call them the style file. And we had every bride
yeah,
had a bulletin board. And, I kind of miss those days, to be
I miss
honest.
those days. I miss
Yeah.
those days because I feel like now everybody has everything. Everyone has access to everything. Even the things I have access to, a bride has access. Now you throw AI into it and it's kind of
I
a
know.
crazy world.
I think it's been robbing creativity, honestly, because you could be working on a concept then, right? And building this concept. And then, say, spring wedding season comes around and you have a different concept than maybe your neighbor and everybody else around you. And then that influences the next season. It's not that like this last season, everybody had chartreuse and lavender weddings. Like
Right.
everyone had, because people are actually having to use their brains and think creatively for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the other thing is there was no lists, right? So like client can be like, I'm just gonna go down the best of lists. Like the lists kind of fucked it up for all of us too, right? The
Yeah.
lists the lists make it challenging because like I'm not sure that there's real definition around the point of entry for the lists. Are the lists there because some editor is sitting at her desk in New York and she's like, well, she did a cool wedding and she did a cool wedding. Like, how do you get on the lists? Are you on the
Right.
list because you've been doing it for so long? Like, I don't know, there's no rule there's, like the rules are loose.
Do you feel like the lists when they first started had more meaning than they do now?
Um, yeah, I do because they're coming from editors that were working in the industry directly with people, and now, like, I don't know if you remember that debacle with the Vogue list a couple years ago where there's people on the list that don't even aren't even in
Right.
business anymore. So you
Right.
know that it's, like, somewhat of a farm out, right, to put that list together, and if I'm not maybe kissing that editor's ass, maybe I'm not gonna make the list. Like, I remember one year I didn't make the brides list, and I was like, "Man, I've been on the brides list, like, every year." And then, like, internally, we're like, "When's the last time we actually had a wedding on the brides list?" And we were like, "I guess it's been a couple of years." And so, we were like, "Well, maybe we just didn't get on the list because we didn't submit a wedding." And so we're like, "I guess we should start submitting weddings." But, the whole editorial world has shifted so much. Like, everything was so much about Martha Stewart. And,
Right.
like, there was, like, maybe there was, like, Harper's Bazaar, which was great. There wasn't really Vogue, but then there was, like, The Knot and, like, I don't know, all the other wedding magazines that were local. But now it's just, like, there's nothing left. They're really I mean,
No. I feel like you just have to put it out yourself.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, the photographer used to get paid, right? They would get paid money to submit the images, and now I don't even think they get paid, and so, like, Over the Moon takes your content, you're not getting well, maybe they do get paid, I don't think they get paid, and
I don't.
then, like, they have our content, so
Right.
there's, like, the royalty piece and the, like, how do you define what's yours and what's someone else's?
Ugh, man, big question, right?
Yeah.
Also, I mean, how do you feel about new planners now? You started 25 years ago. You put in just blood, sweat, and tears. And one of the things that we've talked about, you and I, is just it in your vocal about it is just there's no such thing as an overnight success. But I think a lot of people expect it. And kind of to the point of what you've been saying is there are tools that exist that you didn't have. I know I didn't have, but talk about the meaning of grit and failures and the blood, sweat, and tears. Talk about how important that is.
I mean, that's like the foundation of being good at what you do is like working really hard. Like that's like the foundation for I think for being successful. And then I also feel like relationships, like that hasn't changed. In 25 years, I work just as hard at my relationships then as I do now. Like it's the same thing not only with vendors and establishing relationships and doing a good job and being kind and being aware and mindful of what their needs, your client needs, and playing that really good middleman that makes sure that everyone's feeling good. And then also drawing the line when the clients may be overstepping or drawing the line when the vendor's overstepping. Like you're the executive producer, you're at the top, you manage all the people, but ultimately like you get called again because someone was like, "Wow, I really liked working with that team. That team was lovely. That team was kind." Um, so I think that's like the biggest piece there, and that hasn't changed. I also think it's a bigger piece now in terms of like repeat business, right? Like back in the day, we would just like do a wedding and then we'd be like, "Okay, have a nice life, bye." And then I might see on Facebook 4 years later, I'm like, "Oh God, they got divorced. Wow. Well, actually, that was a little interesting throughout the process. I'm not surprised, or like that would be the way you would know, or you wouldn't get a Christmas card. But now I feel like, circa 10 years after starting, I started to be like, well, I want to like work with these people more. I want to do like their baby shower and their kid's birthday party, and I want to do the siblings' wedding. And so there was a moment in time where we were doing the siblings' weddings, right? Then people were like, I don't want to use the same planner my sister used. So then
Yeah.
we started to see a dip in like the siblings' weddings. But I think another part about that is like I've always tried to maintain relationships with my clients. Now, some of them I'm like, bye, have a
Yeah.
nice life because it just like wasn't the right fit. We did a good job. We're like, thank you very much. Like, if you call me again for the sibling, great. Um, but most of the time I just try and stay in touch. Like, hey, how's it going? Whether it's texting. And sometimes I have a stronger relationship with the mom, sometimes it's with the dad. Sometimes it's the groom, the bride, like it just differentiates. So I
Right.
certainly have like legacy clients who I've maintained relationships over 20 years. I'll tell you one story. We did a wedding for a client God, like probably 12 years ago. It was the client's home and it was the woman's best friend who was getting married who worked for her husband. And so they provided their home and she hired us. She was like helping her friend pay for the wedding. We did a beautiful wedding down in Woodside and she called us like a year ago and was like, "Do you guys do like birthday parties? Because we're planning this birthday party for my husband. He's turning 60." I'm like, "Cindy, hell yeah, we'll do a birthday party. Of course. Like, what do you want to do?" And it turned into like the most fantastic project. And this is 12 years later. She remembered me. And then now we're doing some work for the company that he works for, some like small
Amazing.
corporate, like concierge work. So, you know, just kind of staying connected. We started a newsletter. I don't know, a couple years ago. We were like, God, there's like, I have dated like hundreds of clients' emails. Now, a lot of them have come bounced back. But I'm like, but let's go after like somebody who's doing some corporate work. So my point is like, no matter when you're starting this business, you can't just be one and done. You have to kind of
Uh,
stay connected and stay graceful.
no, I mean, I think that's such wise advice. I recorded with Brian Raffinelli and he talked a lot about that. And it was kind of an aha moment for me personally, because I definitely have been, doing the wedding and that's kind of it. And he was just saying how like short-sighted that is, and the opportunity,
Right.
you've already proven yourself, you've already built that relationship, you've sold yourself. So I have to think about, how am I not planting the seed that there's a relationship beyond this, you know? And sometimes I think that sometimes people think, "Oh, well, I'm not gonna spend what I spent on the wedding, so
Right.
we'll find
Yeah.
someone
She's too
cheaper."
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yes, I do actually recall listening to that episode. And I think the thing that Brian does really well, and I try and do myself now too, is rather than being the one with the headset on running around and producing the event, I too am there saying hello to guests, introducing myself. I know the guest list prior, and I'm trying to just be kind of the happy face that's walking around. I'm not in the uniform anymore. For years, I wore the uniform because I was like, it's just easy to be in the uniform.
right,
Um, but now I just play a very different role and I can spend more time like conversations with the client and the siblings. And I go in the bridal party room and I'm there before they walk down the aisle. And I'm just like there at moments so I can still be a part of it, but I'm not like deeply immersed in it where I'm like, I can't talk to you right now because there's
right,
fire in the kitchen, you know?
right.
So I do think there's a lot to that. And Brian is like so good at that, like so
So good.
charming and so good. But also he's a giant company, so he has a lot of pressure to make sure that he's getting, his next client in the room, right? Like he really has to hustle for that. Not that I don't have to hustle for that, but I yeah, it's definitely something I think that needs to be considered. And obviously if you're a smaller business that's hard to do because, you know,
Sure.
you probably need to be a part of that. But I think there's like some connection where like our ego is so big, like we go into it and everyone's like, Allison events, like, where's Allison? But if you can start selling your company as your people and not just you, I think you're setting yourself up for success. But I mean, you have to be ready to sell that and then own that. But
Right.
it's a
So when
delicate
did you
balance.
when did you start making that shift?
Would say probably like 5 or 6 years ago, like maybe like right before COVID, I had several different people working for me who were working on different projects. And so we sold it like, you're going to work with this producer, that producer, or me. And I didn't like everyone else was charging an extra fee to charge. So I wasn't really changing my fee. I just would sell it and be like, okay, you're going to work with this person. You're the right fit with this person. And I was saying it was based on dynamics, and like where and when and how and the production level and that sort of thing. And then after COVID hit, we were like, why are we doing so many events? This is so annoying. Let's just like focus on like 5 or 6 a year. Let's just like put a lot of effort into this. Like, let's sell ourselves as a team. Let's not like compartmentalize. Now, granted,
Right.
I was financially doing really well, subbing out all these different people. But I just felt like if we come at it from a team and we give them a really good, big, solid team with different skill sets, then we're giving them more.
I
And
love
I
that.
also and I try and say like, I'm like overseeing everything. I'm CC'd on every email, but I'm generally there for the design meeting and the tastings, but I'm not on every phone call, or Zoom call. I have a director of events who's worked with me for 8 years. Like she runs the ship, like for sure. She knows every single little detail. So I think it's all in how you sell it.
Right.
And then like you have to be fluid, right? If you feel like the client is like, I need you because she's not getting whatever she's not getting, then you have to kind of step in. But like I've had clients where they're like, man, your team is incredible. And I kind of pull back a little and maybe have to put energy into something else. So
But you
I
step
think the
in when needed. Like if there's ever, yeah, a difficult situation or they need the hand holding, you're there. So they feel like your presence is on all of the projects. It's not like
yeah,
you're getting passed off. I mean, that's a big thing, I'm sure, in interviews. Like, well, are you just going to pass me off to, a
right.
junior planner? I
Yeah.
think having the ability to say, no, we approach this as a team is a great selling
Well,
point.
and I think there's something like there is a certain like I think having a lead planner, I think they can do stuff on their own. But like I think it depends on the scale of the production. Like when we have a 2, 3, $4 million job, I have like 5 people working on that project. They're different areas. Somebody's focused on F&B, somebody's focused on creative, someone's focusing on like vendor relationships. Somebody's focusing on transportation, and then we have our whole freelance staff that comes too. So I think everybody does it a little bit of a different way, and they're all good ways. They're all just slightly different, but there's a lot of really talented people out there. It's just figuring out like who's the right fit for you. And back to your comment earlier, it's like about dating, right? It's
It's
like
dating.
because
Well,
sometimes clients call and they're like, food and beverage is like the most important thing. And other clients are like, the design matters more than anything else. And so we try and like listen into that and figure out who, what team are we going to put together for this project?
right.
So,
Well, and also the reality of being a business owner is you won't always have your same team members all the time. You have to expect that there is going to be turnover and
yeah,
transition. And that's just kind of a reality of, and I've worn all the different hats of, I plan everything and have an assistant, or I've had a pass off a wedding and have that person plan it all. And
right.
through all of those different phases, and then maybe losing an employee or having to let somebody go, the result of being stuck with, wait, I don't know everything that's happening in this situation. And um, I think you learn the hard way, and I've learned the hard way that it's best for me to have my hands on everything from a team approach, not only because I love it and I think it's great for the clients to know that I'm hands on everything, but also like if someone up and leaves, you actually know what's up, and it's a more seamless transition.
Well, and that's what I didn't like about the old model pre-COVID was like I had multiple people, but I had too many projects going on that I couldn't really have my hands in everything. And like, thank God I didn't have anything go wrong or there wasn't any drama. But there was the potential for it to grow and there could have been drama. So
Right.
I just feel more comfortable with smaller and more focused of an approach. But I think hiring is a very important piece, like hiring the right people for the right jobs. And I think, I used to be all about like full time employees, and now I have some part time employees, some full time employees, and a lot of freelancers that I pull in because I'm like, oh, she'd be really good at this. And I don't think a client cares whether or not you have an employee or a freelancer, and it doesn't really matter. It's
No.
like, who's the best fit for that project? And luckily these days, there's so many great freelancers and they do it full time now. Like we have like 5 or 6 people. They just literally go from project to project and it's great for us because they're obviously getting a lot of experience.
Yeah, no, I think
So,
that's great. Do you you and I talked about this offline, but just talk about your viewpoint that you shared with me that basically everyone you hire will leave you one day. And so how I mean that's just the reality. So how does that influence how you operate your business?
I mean, I think that it's kind of similar to like running the ship, right? Like I think you have to hire people that are really good at like what they do. They have to have the same ethos. They have to equally feel like, for me, I feel like what I'm doing is I want them to feel like guest experience is equal as event design is equal as like food and beverage. Like everything falls equal unless obviously somebody really doesn't care about the design, then maybe we might focus more on F&B or what have you. But I think that like, you know, no, like the chances having someone stay with you forever, I think is unlikely. And in the very beginning, I had this, like one of my most favorite girls who's ever worked for me is this woman, Kelsey. And I don't know, it was early on Martha Stewart days. And she and I like had so much fun traveling the world. We were going everywhere. We were a really great team. And I remember when she left to start her own company. She's now gone on to have like an amazing glamping company. She opened a hotel. Like she's incredible. And and we're still good friends and I invested in her hotel and like such a lovely human. And you know, I feel like when she left, like, "Oh, no, what am I gonna do?" And that was the first time someone had left, and I thought, "Oh, no, like, I'm never gonna find someone the same." And, like, each time someone would leave after that, I started to be like, "I just need to shift my mentality around, like, they're gonna go at some point. I'm either gonna keep them for 2 years or I'm gonna keep them for 5 years." 5 or 6 years seems to be, like, the hit.
Yeah, yeah.
Um um, Either they go and they, like, wanna go do their own thing because they want their name on the door, which is generally what happens, or they go because of other circumstances, like they get married, they wanna have a baby or whatever. But, But I feel like you just have to go in and know, like, I'm going to put everything I can into this person and know that I'm going to help and grow and develop this human. And they're going to give me amazingness back. And like, they're going to help you grow your business. If you go at it like they're going to take from me, which they're going to take from you, they're gonna take a lot of shit from you. Probably some clients, definitely your vendor list, definitely the relationships you've developed over the years, but they're gonna take it in its own way. It's like people always ask me when I wrote the book, they're like, "Why would you write the book? Why would you give people like the A to Z on how to plan weddings?" And I was like, "Well, because like it's kind of fun, first of all, and second, the way that I do it and the way they do it will be 2 totally different things, like 2
Yeah.
different humans behind a business, right? So I just feel like you put your energy into them. It almost feels like they're like my kids. Like I have this one gal who's worked for me. She just decided she wanted to go freelance. She's getting married. She wants to have a baby. She wants to help her husband with his business. She still works for me freelance, but I feel like she's like my kid because she started when she was like 24 and now she's in her late 20s and I'm just, like, so proud of her, like, when she left and when she, like we, like, negotiated her freelance rate and we negotiated, um, like, what it would be to have her on board for some projects. I was just, like, so proud of her because I saw her grow over the years, and I just, like I feel like my employees are like my family.
Yeah.
And I have stepkids that are that same age, so it's sometimes a little weird because I spent so much time with my employees that are in their 20s and their 30s, and then I have stepkids the same age. Sometimes I forget, like, that I'm 50 and they're 25. But I feel really proud of them, and so I just, like, took a totally different approach, or I have, since several people have left and taken and gone and done their own things. I'm proud of them. I might be mad at them because something happened, or I might be annoyed that a situation went down, but I am ultimately proud because there's been so many people that have left and been successful, so I should just sit with, "Wow, that was amazing. Thank you for helping me grow my business. I contributed, to helping you grow. You contributed to helping me grow. And, I really only want the best for people." So I
Yeah.
think you just have to change that mentality, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's also, yeah, I think for the employees who are leaving and moving on, just how important it is to respect what happened
Yeah.
and then like move on gracefully because it sounds like for those who have moved on gracefully, you said you invested in a former
Yeah.
employee's well, like my goodness, the network that you hold for these people to even help them continue growing beyond their time with you is just enormous. And that's the way the world works. And I think going back to what you were saying you focus on in that's being relationships, I think is so lost right now with
Yeah.
all the vendor lists being tagged on Instagram and somebody being like, "Oh, I can just rip that wedding off and do it myself." You can't literally the world doesn't turn without relationships. You might be able to do like some surface level work, but it doesn't have legs that will last, a lifetime.
Well, and like during COVID was an interesting time because, we all didn't really know what was going on. We were holding on to clients, we were losing clients, but like, I feel like that's when a lot of the bonds formed with other colleagues where I was like, if I get sick, like, will you get my back? And so I think like COVID, the repercussion of COVID was that actually we became a little stronger and we became a little bit. I feel like the competition pulled back a little bit. Right now, it feels like the Wild West again, and it's very competitive. And I don't really know what's going on. It feels a little like toxic for some reason. It's feeling there's a lot of energy.
There's a
um,
lot of energy.
yeah.
That's one way of putting it.
So I just, I stay in my lane and I try and focus on myself and my family and my kids. And, I think Instagram can be really like sucking of the soul. There's a lot of
Yeah.
competition there. So, you have to have some work life balance. But anyways, but going back to the staffing piece, yeah, I think you just have to know. Once they come on board, it's just a matter of time before they're gonna leave. And I think before like you get too comfortable, I think you always also have to be on edge of like who's my next person. Like if I'm working an event and I'm really impressed by whether it's a catering sales manager, if it's a florist, if it's a chef, if it's like a band rep, I'm kind of like, she'd be great. I mean, where was I? I was at the Four Seasons for my birthday, and I met this woman. She was on task force. She came from the Mexico City property, and I don't know, we just, like, kept engaging because she was living on property, so I kept kind of running into her, and so we ended up having lunch with her one day, and I sent her a message and I said, "I'm really impressed by you, like, you're gonna go places." Her ultimate goal was to become a GM. I said, "But between now and the time that you become GM, if you ever wanna freelance, like, you'd be an amazing person to join our team." And she's like, "Oh my god, I would love that." So, I am also waiters at restaurants. Like, I've given my card out to some very interesting people throughout my space. So,
So
um,
not being afraid to just take a chance on someone.
yeah, for sure. I mean, no one has ever really come to me through some formal process. Like, I feel like
Mhm.
everyone that's come to me has come to me. I feel like maybe I've put something out on Instagram once or twice and ultimately found someone through something else. Like, I remember my one of my favorite gals, Lauren, who's been with me for 6 years. She came to me because my colleague who was working at Auberge interviewed her and was like, "Hey, she's like great. We don't have a full-time position for her right now, but she would be great for your team." And she's a really good friend of mine. And ultimately we ended up hiring her and she was great and it was a good fit. So it's like goes back to that whole thing of like, you can't ever just like really relax. You kind of always have to be on your feet for your next client, your
Right.
next employee. Who's your next vendor? Same thing. Like,
Right.
I'm constantly looking for my next new vendor.
Well, you have to. You have to. You have to keep growing, evolving, or else you become irrelevant.
Well, and also I feel like everyone else is growing. So like back in the day when I had my I mean, we're going back to like Jose Villa when he was like, I don't know, $15,000. Like not everyone can hire him anymore, or Norman and Blake, or a lot of these like really like amazing photographers. Like if I can't, I always have the budgets to put the OG team that I've been working with for 20 years. So you
Right.
have to go, okay, well, we're going to have to cut in this department and this department in order to hit these numbers. So, who's going to be the person that's going to give me that look that's still going to give the professionalism? So,
Right.
you know, I- I'm always open.
No, I think that's amazing. Well, speaking of being open, and you mentioned this a little bit, but you've written 3 books. And, you already mentioned how in those books I haven't read them. I did order one of your books in advance of
Oh,
this. Yeah.
thank
Now
you.
it's living in my office.
Great.
Um,
Thank
but
you.
a lot of people, guard their methods so closely. And you even mentioned that you mentor on the side.
Hmm.
So, what made you decide to share and kinda get into that educational educator role?
I mean, like my mentorship that I do is not some structured formal thing. It's like I didn't have anybody mentoring me when I started. Like I had a couple of people that I leaned on for questions, but I feel like it's a giving back piece because I just didn't have that. And so if I meet someone and I feel like I think I can help them, then I enjoy supporting and helping somebody grow. So I
Yeah.
take on, I don't know, like 3 or 4 mentorships a year. And sometimes they're like, I want to work with you every month. And every month they come to me with whatever it is that they're struggling with. Sometimes like they're texting me and asking me, like, hey, I had this client situation. How does it work? And sometimes they're like, can you do an audit of like the way that I budget? Can you do an audit of like my investment guide? Can you do an audit of my Instagram? So I just enjoy it. I really enjoy like giving back. And that's why I like conferences like Kindred. And like, I feel like there's more conferences out there that are more about connectivity and, collaboration.
Yeah, no, I
So
agree. Well, and I kind of want to jump into like longevity and leveraging your career. Why is investing in yourself one of the most important things that you can do?
yeah, I mean, like, okay, so there's like a classic way of investing in yourself, which is just therapy. And I think, like, I've been in and out of therapy my whole life. I probably did more therapy when I was younger than I have since I've been older. And I think if you're not doing traditional therapy, having some sort of a business coach or a mentor or somebody to help you kind of stay in check, because I think the ego can kinda take over us sometimes, and we get a little cocky, and I think it's good to be humbled. Like, I love being humbled. I love it when my staff and my clients and, like, actually mostly love it when my staff calls me out on my shit. I think it's hilarious, but I give them the opportunity that, like, I don't always know, sometimes I feel really strongly about something, but I love when they, "Well, what about this? And what about that? And, like, did you think of this? And, oh, I don't know if I would say that because remember this happened." So, I think that having some sort of, accountability is really important. So, I think the coach route and doing some sort of therapy, and then I do think that these conferences can be helpful like, I always tell my mentorship, clients, like, get a crew of women together, men or women in your industry, like 5 to 10 people, like start a chat group and lean on each other, like support each
Yeah.
other, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone's so afraid, well, we're bidding on the same things. And you're like, well, maybe you're not saying, hey, is anyone talking to Sarah and John? Like maybe keep that out. But, having that support, I think is really important. Oh, and Frida just
Yeah.
launched, which I think is a really
Yes.
great kind of
Yes.
concept like that.
Yes. Well, and going back to your point of like people being too afraid to lean on each other, I would say a lot of people like us do a handful of weddings a year. And so let's just say five. Okay. I do five, you do five. There are so many people, so many fish in the sea. We are not all competing over the same five people.
Correct.
And
Yes.
so it's just, and maybe once in a while, especially when you get to a certain level, like you might be being interviewed with, the same clients interviewing you and your friend. But the reality is there's so much out there for everyone to
So
have.
much work.
Like
Yeah.
you're just pigeonholing yourself to think
Yep.
that small.
Yep.
Um, Another thing
Agree.
we talked about that I thought was really interesting was the importance of having a plan for your business.
Mhm.
Like, do you
Mhm.
have a plan? And one of the things that you mentioned to me was like, do you budget for these conferences? Like, can you actually afford to go to Engage every year or two times a year? Talk about that as a business owner.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I had a structured amount every year that I'm gonna spend, but I have a general idea of what the spend is gonna look like in terms of, like, conferences, fam trips, because sometimes fam trips include air, sometimes they don't include air, and then your transfers, and there's a lot of other expenses outside of a fam trip. These conferences, these the Frida groups and whatnot. So I think you should have a general idea based on your total salary, just the same as you would, think about like, okay, make this, my rent or my mortgage is this, and this should be these should be the rough percentages of what I'm spending. So I think there should be some thought process on that. Um, and I think, like, people overdo it a little bit. I see people, like, on a fam trip all the time, and I'm like, "How?" Well, first of all, you probably don't have kids. Second of all,
Yeah.
I don't know how that, like, looks to clients when you're constantly I mean, I get it. You're traveling the world, you're seeing things, but I think there's, like, a delicate balance of, like, "Look at me, I'm here, I'm doing all these things," and, like, I don't know. So I think that the education piece, I think you definitely have to invest back, and I think you have to think through around what that spend is gonna be, but I don't think you have to go to all the things. Like, I think you have
Right.
to choose, like, maybe a conference a year and a great fam trip, or maybe it's not even a fam trip. Maybe you're gonna get together with your group of planners and you're gonna go somewhere and create your own trip, whether you call it a fam or not, so that you can experience something. But there's certainly lots of opportunities, but I think you can get caught up really easily. And I don't think you need to, I think you're gonna be more focused and a better, like, uh, producer if you are not, like, too crazy going from thing to thing?
Right, right. And also finding the right fit where it's growth focused and it's not just bouncing around for a free party everywhere you go.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
What conferences have you found to be the most valuable?
It's funny, like, I learned something in the last couple years about myself that I didn't know, and it's that I don't personally like to host parties. How weird is that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can handle like an 8 to 10 person dinner party because I obviously love to set the table. I love flowers. I love napkins, chargers. So I have all that stuff. But when it gets too big, I get overwhelmed. And I found myself, I was at an engage a couple years ago in Florida. And I was like, this is just too much for me. Like I have social anxiety when there's that many people in the room. And I feel like there's a certain point where it goes from, like, everyone's, like, a little buzzed, everyone's, like, really drunk, and if you don't make your, like, connections within the first 24 hours, then everyone's kind of huddled up and off, and then it's harder to make connections because they're so overwhelmed by how many people they wanna talk to.
Yeah.
So, I don't enjoy the bigger conferences. I've spoken at many of them, and I'll go, but I prefer it's just something more intimate. So I've really been liking Kindred. I'm actually on their advisory board, and I think they're doing a really good job. It's not necessarily education focused, but it is about like connectivity and camaraderie and like really low ego. So I've really enjoyed that. It's much more my pace.
I
Um,
love the low ego piece of it.
yeah. Well,
Love
and
that.
they're not like, here are our speakers on a pedestal. You're like a person with some experience. And I think
Mhm.
that's more important than like, I don't know, like, I think the ego really hits those big stages. And then I don't know, I sit in the stage and I'm like, "Oh my god," I roll, like, I think I just would prefer to have a sit down with you, like, personally and be like, "Hey, so tell me about, like, how did you grow your business and what do you do in this market?" And they give that opportunity with these, like, one-on-one conversations, and they, like, intentionally sit you down with people that you wanna sit with or the person wants to sit with you, so all the lunches and dinners are all very thought through. It's not just like you're put at a table and then you're like, "Oh my god." I don't
Right.
know anyone at this table, like, I appreciate that, and I do really appreciate Frida. I've not joined the Frida group, but I am a big proponent of it. One of my employees is joining because they have, like, a seconds group now, which is pretty
Mm.
cool, so she's gonna join the group. I have my own, like, group of planners that I connect with, like, regularly through chat. I haven't been to Entrusted Company yet,
I
but I heard
haven't
that's a good
yet.
one.
No, I haven't yet, and I just joined Frida too.
Oh,
I
you
just
did?
joined
Oh,
Frida.
cool.
I went to the first Kindred in Santa
Yep.
Barbara, and
Yeah.
so I need to go to some of these
Yeah,
upcoming ones.
yeah, I would go to another one. They're doing 2 year. I think they just added, like, a smaller, like, more roundtable concept. So I think they're trying to figure out, like, what the best flow is. But what I love also about Kindred, which is very different from Engage, because Engage, the point of entry, like, there's a lot of big names and a lot of, like, energy there. I feel like with Kindred, like, although their point of entry is, like, 5 to 10 years and up, for me, I'm, like, kinda meeting my next favorite photographer in the room or
Yeah.
videographer, or I'm connecting with planners who are in regions that I haven't been or that I've worked, and then I might wanna go back and be like, "Hey, can I pick your brain because 'Cause you've worked in this region." So, I'm kind of like, scaling the room and figuring out, like, who I'm gonna connect with. So I've met a lot of really great photographers at Kindred that I've ended up hiring for projects. The last one I wanna mention is WIPA. I'm really
Oh,
happy with WIPA too. Now, I'm not a I don't I'm not a member of, like, San Francisco WIPA, but I've been to a couple WIPAs as a speaker in different parts of the country, and I also really like what they're doing. And I know there's a lot of people that, like, travel to different cities to go to the WIPAs, but they've, like, churn things up and change things around, and I was very impressed with several WIPAs that I went to.
I have to agree. I'm seeing, like, the Philly Whippa is really popping off on the East Coast, and we don't
Yeah.
have like, in Charleston, we don't have an active chapter, and I know they're trying to get going, but I agree. I've been really eyeing what's happening.
Yeah. No, I think it's one to pay attention to because you can just go. If there's
Yeah.
somebody that you wanna hear that's speaking or they're talking about something that you can go to any of the different WIPAs, and I think the point of entry is not that high to join.
No,
I don't think it's that heavy of a lift.
no.
So
Well, this is a perfect segue, and I'd love to conclude our conversation just talking about collaboration. And we already
mhm.
talked about having your text group and your network and going to these conferences. But what about actually collaborating on projects together? Like,
Yeah.
when is it time to bring in a creative director? Or, like, I know Linden Lane is doing this, offering teaming up with a planner and offering design services. Like, this is a totally new thing.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on it?
Well, we were one of those people. I went to Barbie and I was like, I'm doing this sister's wedding. She has a very specific aesthetic, which I felt lent very Linden Lane. The mother of the bride was lovely. We had a great relationship with her. The previous wedding we had done when my old creative director did the design, and it was beautiful. But we were like, we want to give her something totally different because they were doing the exact same location and
Mm,
we've worked there so many times. And I'm like, I feel like this could be a great opportunity for a collaboration. So we went to Linden Lane and we're like, do you want to design it and we'll produce it? So that was like the first time we had ever done that. And I really enjoyed it. She really enjoyed it. Like, there was definitely areas where we were like, "Oh, are you doing that?" Because I was thought I was going to do that. So there,
yeah, yeah,
it's a definite learning, but we really enjoyed it. I know they've done a couple other projects with other producers as well. But I just feel like rather than being so like stuck in my way of this is how I'm doing it, I like to take each project step by step. And sometimes we're like, you know what, this is going to be an internal AE Allison events person. And sometimes I'll hire a freelancer and have her come on and she'll drive the design. Sometimes we'll hire a designer like Putnam, or we'll hire a Rishi, or like we'll hire somebody who just specifically does design, Kathleen Deary. I mean, there's a lot now.
yeah,
Um, so we're just trying to be really fluid and, you know, really make it very specific about the client and the project and the vision and not be so like stuck. And I'll tell you a story. We did a wedding in France also like 10 plus years ago, one of the biggest weddings I've ever done. They got married at Hotel de Cap. Coldplay performed. It was like, $5 million plus at the time. And the client had a very specific aesthetic. And we had done the sister's wedding, which was very much like our kind of California chic, relaxed wildflowers at the time. And the brother was marrying a woman who really wanted like very feminine, very girly. She wanted like flower covered teddy bears in pink, tulle. Like it was definitely outside my comfort zone.
yeah,
And honestly, we were like, we need to work with a design company to do this because I don't even like know how to like, I can't even like envision this. And we ended up working with Roni Floral, who's based in
okay,
France. And now he's become like a big designer. At the time, I don't know that he was necessarily just doing design, but it was a great collaboration because we were able to still oversee the whole project, but we weren't like the creative was coming from them. And so the client could literally, uh, articulate that and we could play the middleman and be like, yes, I think this would work, or I would. And, at the end of the day, I will say it was like one of those things where when the wedding photos came back, Elizabeth Messina shot it, super feminine. It was like so up her alley. Everything was like, it was perfect for this bride. And we were like, how are we gonna like put this on site? Because we want to show the scale and the scope of what we did, but it doesn't necessarily align with our vision
right.
in terms of like the majority of the stuff we did. So we did kind of a very curated edit where it did show the scale and scope, but it didn't get into the depth and breadth of what like normally we'd show on our website. And I would say that was the first time we were like, it's okay to like be like, I didn't design it. And I think that
Yeah,
was really the part that held me up for so long is like, I'm an event designer, and
right.
I design all my projects. And I think it's okay to be like, I collaborated with this person. And since then, in the last like 5 years since we've had a various degree of different ways in which we've worked. And so I think it's all available and open to everyone. You just have to kind of let go and be like, it's okay to try something a little bit different and try it a
Yeah.
different way. And I feel like having been in this for so long, I actually enjoy it more. Like I know how to do it all. I mean, I built most of the stuff back when I first
You don't
started.
have to prove anything.
I'm not trying to like do everything anymore because I can't, but I can look at a deck and be like, okay, so, she really was leaning into tulips and I don't see any tulips on your deck, or this feels a little Tuscan and it needs to feel like more bohemian or whatever. So we're still like executive producing all of our project and obviously to some degree creative directing it as well. but we're not necessarily doing the decks, or maybe we're not necessarily physically there overseeing the tent install. It depends on the project, you
Right,
know? So
right.
so everything is very fluid and very open, and I just think there's a lot of different ways to go about this, and then at the end of the day, it's like for me, it's like I want the client to be happy. So whatever I need to do to get there, if it's in budget and it's working with them, um, then that's how we're gonna do it.
Do you ever have a client push back and be like, "Well, I thought I was hiring you for that?"
No, never.
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah,
Because again, like we take each project and then we determine what we're doing it. If it's something that's like, not high level production, then we're doing it in house because it's not a heavy lift. But if we're like building a mini town and it's somewhere destination and we're going to really need to lean on a production company. I mean, I didn't even use a production company until like 5 years ago. I did all of
right,
that stuff myself. I hired each and individual vendor by myself.
right.
So I feel like now we have like lots of amazing resources and like, customer service and guest experience is so important now. It kind of wasn't back then, like it was, but now it's like, how do you do an event that's so much different than the last one? Because everyone like sees everything and has done everything. And I feel like that's really where you shine, where you're like hand holding every single guest from start to finish. So you're
Yes,
touching everyone and they're like, wow, I just felt so taken care of. So that for me, I think is where people are walking away because they've seen already something really pretty. Like we've kind of done all the things,
right.
unless you're doing something really out of left field. We've seen all the pretty, but I think the guest experience is the piece where you can really shine.
When it kind of what I'm hearing is, especially since you're saying it's only been about 5 years since you've started using production companies, I think this is where, as at least for the planners who've been in it for at least a decade or 15 or 20 years, are thinking the ego is saying like, "Wait, you're a designer, you don't outsource this." Like, that's kind of like cheating. But then I think we're all just getting in our own ways and realizing that this is
Huh.
just the way it is now.
I mean, think about all these event designers. Are they really trekking their entire floral team from the States to some third world country? Like they're probably like white labeling some local company and super creative directing it. Like there's a lot of stuff
100%.
going on that's not like talked about, but like who
Right.
cares? It's okay.
If
Everyone
you if it gets the
do
job
your
done,
way.
yeah, who cares? Who
As long
cares?
as the client's happy and you're able to produce their vision and give them the experience that they care about, yeah, I think anything's possible.
Well, if you could, just to conclude our conversation, just leave listeners with 1 or 2 truths that you think every planner, photographer, creative partner
Mm.
needs to remember. Share us what your takeaway would be after 25 years in this industry.
I mean, I think I talked about it a lot already, which is the relationships piece and really putting like a lot of currency into that and making sure that you're not letting that go aside. Like don't get too busy to forget about those relationships, whether it's with your client or your vendors. Think like be kind. Like somebody told me once, like when you get to a bar, the first drink you order from the bartender, like give them a big tip. Because then when you come back to the bar the second time, they're going to remember you. So I think like just like lead with kindness. Like it's a crazy world. We're all busy. Things are happening all the time. Like don't forget your manners. I think that's easy when you're busy and overwhelmed. Um and then like I don't know, just be consistent, be consistent in both your service and your ability to have, lead with grace. So,
I love it.
thank
Thank you,
you.
Allison. Thank you for
It
being
was
with
so nice
me.
chatting with you. It's nice to
So
meet you. I can't wait to sit next to you at something.